And I know that, we all do. We all have our issues with our parents and stuff, but I definitely feel like trying to model motherhood when motherhood was not modeled for me very well it's an interesting journey.
Ever feel like you suck at this job? Motherhood, I mean. Have too much anxiety and not enough patience? Too much yelling, not enough play? There's no manual, no village, and no guarantees. The stakes are high. We want so badly to get it right. But this is survival mode. We're just trying to make it to bedtime. So if you're full of mom guilt, your temper scares you, you feel like you're screwing everything up, and you're afraid to admit any of those things out loud, this podcast is for you. This is Failing Motherhood. I'm Danielle Bettman, and each week we'll chat with a mom ready to be real, sharing her insecurities, her fears, her failures, and her wins. We do not have it all figured out. That's not the goal. The goal is to remind you, you are the mom your kids need. They need what you have, you are good enough, and you're not alone. I hope you pop in earbuds, somehow sneak away, and get ready to hear some hope from the trenches. You belong here, friend. We're so glad you're here. In this episode, Joslyn and I talk about needing individual solutions that work for your family, the importance of getting on the same page, and boosting your parenting toolkit of go-to responses that may help you stay calm. I can help you with all of these things. As your parent coach, I help you revamp your child's behavior, establish routines, improve your relationships, and help you feel like you know what you're doing. Find more information at my website, parentingwholeheartedly.com. As a new client and podcast listener, enter the promo code PODCAST for $25 off your consultation. I can't wait to work with you. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Failing Motherhood. My name is Danielle Bettman, and on today's episode, I'm joined by my good friend, Joslyn. Joslyn was my very first mom friend that broke down my barriers and taught me what true friendship looks like. She moved in literally next door to me at the perfect time between my two pregnancies, and she let me cry on her couch, and we could hang out after bedtime with our video monitors, and we pretty much had the most amazing thing going until she rudely moved away a couple years ago. She is as real as it gets, and I'm so excited to have her on today. Welcome, Joslyn.
Thank you. Welcome. I'm so excited to be here. And your intro made me all like, I want to come back. Come back
I know.
In a heartbeat.
Well, if you would just not be married to your husband.
Right.
And,
we'll just stop serving our country. And
exactly.
My husband will go AWOL. He'll get arrested. No big deal. Danielle and I will be together.
Perfect. Sounds like a foolproof solution.
Yes. Yes. I know.
Well, at least I can see you right now. And and we have technology. So there's that. So the question of the day is, have you ever felt like you were failing motherhood?
Me? Nope. Perfect mom. I don't know why you're having me on this show. Not. Of course, every moment of every day, I question everything that I do. All of it. From laying in bed before I've even joined my kids. I'm like, how am I going to screw up today? Yeah.
Yes. The struggle is real.
Very.
Which is why you're here.
Yes. Yeah.
This is an intervention.
Yep. And I've got resources. That's what this is about. I have a resource. I have a tremendous resource. I'm luckier than most of your listeners because I can call you anytime I want.
Yes, you can. You literally know where to reach me.
Yep.
So what did you expect motherhood would be like?
Oh, boy. So, before you have kids and you're married and you're like, people come up to you and they're like, hey, what is a dumb question. Why do people ask this? I don't know. How many kids do you want to have? And we used to answer, as many as God wants to bless us with. And now I look back and I'm like, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? So I expected motherhood to be like, this grand adventure. And it certainly is. It's so good. But then we had one kid. And I was like, one is a really good number. I have all of my attention to give to this one child. But being a military family, I was like, okay, we need a built-in friend for everywhere we go. So we'll have two, and two is really good for us. So to each his own, but for us, two is really good. The question was, what did I expect motherhood to be like, right?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about all the things. I expected it to be full of joy all the time. And I thought I would really enjoy things like baking with my kids and playing. And, the things that I enjoy in motherhood are definitely not what I expected. Yeah. I do
Yeah.
enjoy it. I love my kids. They're amazing and I enjoy motherhood. But there are parts of it they're rough, man. So.
Samesies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When I was in a classroom working with kids, I was like, surely this will all translate.
Yes. That's, you know what? That's exactly what it was. I'm like, I'm really good with kids. I volunteered at church in the nursery and with the preschoolers and the kindergartners and my friends who had kids. I was like, I'm awesome at this. And then I had kids and they just don't respond to you the same way.
No, they do not.
But it's good. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have two kids. How old are they now?
I have a 6-year-old, just turned 6 in February, and an 8-year-old. 6-year-old girl, 8-year-old boy.
Man, that's hard to believe.
I know. Time is going by.
Yeah. So when did things get hard?
We joked earlier, but so I got pregnant. And actually, we joked about that a minute ago, but from the moment I got pregnant, I had the condition where you vomit all the time your whole pregnancy.
Oh,
yeah. So it literally immediately was harder than I expected it to be. And then when you start to realize that they're these own little tiny humans with their own personalities and they don't just, do everything you want to do. And they interrupt every little bit of part of life. And yeah, and doing it with somebody else, right? The parenting, the co-parenting part, that part, I think is a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I thought, we agree on so much. We both have similar values. And so that should make it easy. And it doesn't translate the same way as you expect. So
yeah,
we might agree on, what movie we should watch tonight, but whether or not that tantrum was worth disciplining, I'm doing air quotes right now. Those not watching. We don't always agree on all that.
Yeah. And a lot of families struggle with that, but I really do feel like that hits us sideways where that was not something that we were going to be we know we're going to be exhausted. We know sleep is going to be a thing.
Sure, of course.
We know that there's going to be tantrums, but yeah, having to really reconcile the difference between what behavior warrants what reaction and why, that is hard.
Yeah, and my mama bear, I have to she's fierce and she wants to protect. Not that my husband would ever be violent in any way towards my kids, but men have a different approach to parenting, and where I might be calmer in a situation and my husband is a little louder. He's not aggressive. I don't want people listening and being like, "Oh, is she married?" But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that mom, like what triggers dad is not the same thing that triggers me. And where he might be upset, that my son he might take something as disrespectful, and I've been with him all day, so I'm like, he's tired, he's hungry, he's had a rough day. He wasn't I want to obviously correct a behavior if it was disrespectful, but sometimes I'm like, honey, you're being sensitive. So the mama bear comes out fierce and strong and wants to react. So co-parenting is hard.
And that's something that I do work with clients with a lot, because it comes up where we're seeing the same situation of what's happening with our kids from two completely different lenses based on our own stuff and our own day and where we're at and the way that we were parented and the way that our parents would have reacted to that behavior.
Right.
And all of these complexities are making it very complicated to even communicate how we're seeing it and then what we feel like is going to get our kids to the end goal we want, because we all want what's best for our kids.
Yes, of course.
Of course. But the definition of that is different, and then the road to get there is different, and it's not talked about.
Oh man.
So when you're making things up as you go
Hmm.
every single day of parenting, winging it on the fly, yeah, it's a little bit of a
Yep.
mess.
Yep. Hmm.
So, were there any other dynamics that you were navigating that made you feel like that added anxiety or fear or doubt into your decisions?
Oh gosh. I think the added component is, like you were mentioning, our upbringings and how our parents reacted. And in my life, I have three mother figures that were pretty prominent at some point or another. And I've been, um, this is not a pity party. You don't have to feel bad for me. I'm working through my own stuff. But uh, I've been rejected or abandoned by all three of them at some point. So my own anxiety over parenting and trying to reconcile what a mother really needs to be with what's been shown to me by example, what the world is telling me I'm supposed to be, and then my actual relationship with my kids. And you know, I don't want to screw it up. I definitely don't want to set the example that I had, and we're doomed to repeat a lot of our parents' mistakes, right? Like inevitably, I catch myself doing something, and be like, "Oh my gosh, I am my I'm my mom. I'm
Oh,
being my
right.
mom right now in this moment." And it's so weird because my mom left when I was pretty young. And so I I didn't realize how much of an impact she had even in those earlier years that I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm still becoming her." Which is,
Yeah,
not that we have, reconciled our relationship since then, but yeah, it's
the damage
really
was done.
the damage was done. It is very
Yeah.
impactful for good or for bad. And so I think about that all the time. Like, how do I not ever let my kids feel that kind of abandonment? And obviously, I have very strong feelings about not abandoning your children. I won't leave mine
It's
ever.
kind of a big deal. Yeah.
You know, but the crazy part is, I think, gosh, she must have thought that at some point when I was little, right? I'm sure she didn't have me and go, in a couple of years, I'm going to abandon this sweet child. Um, so really, just examining every aspect of my life to be like, how is this impacting my children? How are my choices here impacting my children? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I have lots of fears and anxieties.
Well, understandably. Yeah.
Yep. And I know that, we all do. We all have our issues with our parents and stuff, but I definitely feel like trying to model motherhood when motherhood was not modeled for me very well it's an interesting journey.
Yeah. That's a very unique one because you usually hear of daddy issues or when dad left,
Sure. Right,
but
right.
it's, you don't hear that a lot where it's the struggle of me and my mom or mom left at a young age because it's not even that it was the years that you remembered. It was the most formative years of those early ones that really was wiring your subconscious in a way that is still something you have to deal with today.
100%. Yep.
And I know that there's a lot of parents in our generation that are working to parent differently than they were
Mhm.
parented because there's just a growing awareness of, understanding more research and learning a lot more about what kids need and what works. And all of that is wonderful. But you can consciously read books and understand content, but not be able to do it in the moment because of that wiring.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I have lots of external knowledge of, in those moments of fear and anxiety where I'm telling myself that I'm not my mother. I am not
Mm-hmm.
my stepmother. I am not any of these people in my life. And my relationship is going to be different. And I have power over that. I have choices that I can make to do things better. So it's
Yeah.
reassuring. But in the moment, sometimes I really have to like center myself and be like, I am I'm not this. Like
Right.
I'm making a different choice for my family. And this is my family and my past. Like, there are some things too that you grieve for your children where you're like, oh, but I want them to have X, Y, and Z that I had when I was little.
Mm-hmm.
But where we are, especially the military, right? Like I grew up with a lot of family close by. And so I want my kids to have like family and cousins and know their cousins and know all their aunts and uncles. And as a military family, we're just so far removed from that. So instead of we nurture those relationships as much as we can, but our core family, like developing what that is, is, I don't know, has a more relevance. What am I trying to say here? I don't know. Like it's more, I don't know. You're like, I don't know either. Okay.
No, it's a
just
totally
edit that
different
right out
identity.
if you want. Yes, identity. Thank you. Yeah, it's the identity for my kids. What I'm creating for them is going to look different than what I had. And to me, it seems like a loss in some ways, but they're just not even going to know any different. So,
yes.
Yeah.
There's so much of that mind game in motherhood that you have to just keep combating.
Yes.
The guilt and the perspective and the mindset that you come in with. Because, yeah, our kids are completely different people with a completely different childhood and a completely different time frame, and they don't know any different than we're giving them. But
yeah.
we know so much more about the world.
Bring it back to the co-parenting bit. That's the part where like my husband and I disagree sometimes because we, sometimes he'll go, I could never have gotten away with that. And, well, they need to learn what it's like to be without. And I'm like, I don't need to manufacture adversity for my children. Adversity will come, right? Like it's going to happen no matter what I do. Are they far more privileged than I was as a kid? Absolutely. Is that a bad thing? I don't think so. Because, right, all of our goals is to provide better for our kids than we had, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we always have good intentions, but...
Right. We had this conversation with a friend recently where, he grew up with very little food on his table. He was one of those kids who maybe only got to eat at school. And we were talking about how do we teach our kids to be aware of that without, obviously, I'm not going to starve my kids to prove a point.
Right.
So I'm not gonna give them, be like, well, when I was a kid, I went through whatever, and then so you need to go through it. That's not a thing. Like, we want better for our children. Yeah. Without raising entitled spoiled brats. Like, that's mom guilt too. Am I raising an entitled spoiled brat? Lord, I hope not.
Oh my gosh. Yes. The amount of times that came up in a survey I sent out, I feel like I don't want to raise a spoiled kid. Because there is no guarantees. I mean, it's not like we're just, we follow the formula and then a perfectly normal adult comes out and we pat ourselves on the back and get a gold star.
But I like my gold star. I was the kid at school who wanted the gold star. So having motherhood where there's no marker, there's no visual indicator
rubric.
for, I'm like, so how do I know if I'm succeeding or failing? I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it because if I did have a rubric that I was able to grade myself and hold it up and say, okay, yep, these are the markers for this year. I'm nailing it.
Yes.
Then I'm good to go. But that does not exist.
Yep. I try a little bit, when I have like parent-teacher conferences. That's like the closest I can get to a gauge. Yeah. I'm like, okay, how are they? Were they? I know at home they're disrespectful. How are they at school? Are they being respectful? Oh yeah, of course. I'm like, okay, that's one thing I can, wipe my brow and it's all good.
Yes.
But it's not, they only have them for a portion of time. I'm like, that's not like a full. She's not getting me gold stars. Although sometimes when I'm feeling like I'm in those conferences, I'm like, tell me I'm doing okay. tell me my kid's not the worst kid in your class.
Yes. We need that reassurance, especially, now in the pandemic, we are the teachers. So
that's the worst.
Their grades are technically our grades now because I'm doing the homework.
Right. And I have admittedly some control issues. So like with my kindergarten, guys, she's in kindergarten. Does it matter if she writes her C's forwards or backwards every single time right now? No. Do I want her to correct it every single time? I have to deep breath. This is fine. Hard. It's okay that she's writing it backwards. What matters is that she's getting words on paper. And it's harder when you're not a teacher because I'm like, I don't know what the standard is right now. Am I supposed to correct her so that she stops making that mistake? Because that's what my brain says, right? My brain says correct the action every time, so that they stop making that mistake. But I feel like that's missing the point. And it's the same way in motherhood. parenting,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you're like,
Mm-hmm.
I need to stop this behavior and I need to stop it every single time and I need to do it the same way every single time in order for them to improve this part of
For
their,
them to learn.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
then what is like separating their personality from that is really tricky. I'm like, what
Ooh,
is this
that gets
really?
messy.
Is this a flaw that I need to correct, like a bad, habit?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this just part of their personality that clashes with my own? That's tricky for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because
Hmm.
we all have our triggers
Yes.
of the hot button behaviors
Hmm.
that we just can't even with.
Yep.
And then kids get like programmed to boop those out.
Yep. Yep. Hmm.
And yeah, and then it becomes a thing of what is my role? Like, what am I responsible for?
Right.
What am I responsible to them for?
Right.
And it's not clear.
No,
The
that's hard.
manual doesn't cover it.
Mm-mm. Manual? You got a manual?
I know, right?
I didn't get a manual.
No, there is no manual, which is why this is so hard.
It's funny because there's no manual, and at the same time, there are too many freaking manuals. Like,
Oh,
everybody's got an opinion on it. There's a million blogs. How do I filter through? And, plug for you right now. Like, I appreciate so much about your not business model, but your approach to parenting and co-parenting, and that it's not a one size fits all. It's not you have a kid and if they act like this is the response no matter what, upside down. I think that's the parenting technique that a lot of us are trying to overcome from our own youth is this like, parents are like, if your kid does X wrong, then it was like timeout no matter what, right? Like this, you always do timeout and it doesn't matter the behavior and it doesn't matter the reason for the behavior. If the parent didn't like it, timeout, spanking, whatever. Those were pretty much the two options. And you got a timeout or a spanking for everything, regardless of the circumstances, just immediately correct the behavior. That was the thing. Where now like the approach is more of a, well, what's causing the behavior? Because who cares if I corrected the behavior if on the inside my kid is being like, oh, I hate you and you're the worst parent ever. Because I remember doing that, sitting in the corner being like, I didn't do anything to deserve this. And this is unfair.
Learning my lesson.
And now I'm building resentment towards my parents. I'm totally not learning the lesson at all, except don't act like that in front of my parent.
Get away with it.
Right. Get away with it. Yeah, exactly. So.
Yes. And you don't really care what they think, ultimately. And then, that whole breakdown of the relationship ruins all the teaching that was intended.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just get it right. No pressure.
It's fine. This is fine. We're all doing fine.
So what are the specific ways that you feel the most guilty in your day-to-day in the last few years? Like, what does failing look like in your house?
Oh, boy. I have a son who eats combinations of bread and cheese only. I
With
literally
ketchup.
can't name a vegetable that I can get. Ketchup? Ketchup. Yeah, thank you for catching me. Ketchup. I'm like, it's got tomatoes. Does that count?
Yes, it counts.
Ketchup and red sauce on pizza. Not on spaghetti, but red sauce on pizza. So bread and cheese. He'll eat pizza. He'll eat quesadillas. He'll eat grilled cheese. The occasional chicken nugget. He's got the worst freaking diet. And I have immense guilt over this because I tried all the things early on, the sit at the table, but you just don't want it to be a battle of like wills. It gets to a certain point. He legit has some, he did have reflux that went undiagnosed, silent reflux for years. I didn't know it was happening. And now I feel like he developed these food aversions out of that. And I just have no clue how to fix it because we tried. And the sit at the table and let everybody cry and make family mealtime miserable just isn't worth it to me. So there's a show I watched recently actually that talked about this grown-up man who doesn't eat vegetables at all. And they're like, wait, your mom never made you eat any vegetables? And he says, she said it wasn't worth her sanity. And I was like, oh, yes.
I feel that.
I feel that. Not worth my sanity. No, I'm like, someday, we'll work on it. And we do, obviously, we try the like try a bite.
Mm-hmm.
You have to try at least a bite. But yeah, I am that mom who makes a quesadilla when the rest of us are eating, other things. But my daughter, she'll eat anything. She's like, sushi, bring it on. Salad, I love it. It's delicious. So, I got it right with that one the second go round.
I don't think you had control over either one.
No, that's true. And that's totally true. I did not make, their taste buds. We got taste buds.
Yeah.
I'm like, I get it. There are things I'm a vegetarian and I hate mushrooms. I want to like them. I don't like them. If you don't like it, you don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely feel like I'm failing there. He's also very gifted, and I wonder if I'm meeting his needs that way appropriately. Am I holding him back in some way? Am I getting him, in the classes that he needs and stuff at school? Like, is he being challenged? Is he bored? Or, yeah. And screen time, too many video games. With my daughter, she has sensitivity issues. She's a highly sensitive person. And I'm honestly just now starting to learn about, I just started a book called The Highly Sensitive Child. And I'm like, that's my daughter. So it's giving me some tools. But yeah, she has issues with clothes. And I'm like, and I can't identify her triggers. Like, sometimes you've got a kid who doesn't like things that are crinkly or doesn't like things that they have to be really, really soft. And I've gone through all the, well, I'll do this one. I'll buy this because it's got no tags and nothing that's going to bother her. And sometimes I feel so out of touch with her needs that I'm like, I'm screwing this all up because I see that she's got a legit struggle here. She's not being bratty. Something is her skin is crawling. It hurts her. It bothers her. And I want to be able to fix it. I want to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't figure out the perfect fix.
Nope. Mm-mm. No, I'm failing it there. And then also too, I don't know if you can relate to this at all, but I hate to play. It turns out I thought that was going to be a really fun part of parenthood.
Reach.
I do not want to play Barbies. I do not want to have a tea party. And my son was easier in this regard because he never asked me to do any of those things. He's never been really into pretend play. He's just brilliant. He's been playing video games and card games and board games since, he was pretty young. And I can do those things because they're pretty straightforward and it's like a real specific amount of time, right? If you're going to play a card game, you're like, I know when this is over. Barbies doesn't have an end. And tea parties, and she always wants real tea, but she won't drink it. And then I'm mad that I've wasted the tea on this tea part. And I'm like, it really doesn't matter. The tea was not super expensive. It shouldn't be a big deal, but for some reason it's really bothered me. So I do not like to play. And I have so much guilt over that because I know that her little personality connects through that, that she wants nothing more than to play that way. And I'm like, why am I bad at it? When I was a kid, I remember being like her. I remember having this crazy good imagination. And if she wants to play family, she's like, hey, we'll play family and you be the mom. And I'm like, I don't want to be the mom. I'm always the mom. I want to be the cat who's napping in the corner. Can we play that? Because that sounds like a lot more fun to me. So yeah, that's really hard for me because, right, her love language is that type of quality time. And I'm like, I will sit with her. I could read books from morning till night. I love reading to my kids. And for the most part, they enjoy it too, I hope. But trying to push myself to say, okay, I'm going to set a timer. And for 15 minutes, Noli and I are going to play Barbies. And I do this not because I love it, but because I love her, right? You do things you don't love for the people that you love. So, but trying to figure out what that healthy balance is. And especially right now, since normally we have a ton of friends that I can call and say, Noli needs a playmate. Somebody come play Barbies with Noli. But right now we don't have that. So especially since she doesn't have it, trying to meet the needs that are not being met by other friendships and relationships is hard.
That is
real
super hard.
Mm-hmm.
And we're with them 24/7.
24/7. And my son doesn't want to play Barbies. He's barely interested in pretend play. So they do play together, and I'm so thankful for the bond that they're building during this time. It is pretty special to see it kind of grow and blossom because they've always had friends that they could turn to, and now they're forced to be each other's friends, and so that's kind of neat. But at the same time, Nolly's like, but I wanted to play Barbies. And he's like, oh God, please, Mom, don't make me play Barbies.
And you're like, no, I get you.
I'm like, no, I get it, bud. I get it.
Yeah.
Let's set a timer. It helps that there's a timer. Yeah, it definitely
Yes.
helps to have a timer, to know that there is an end in sight. And then we can do something that you want to do. Yeah.
You are not alone in that for sure. And that was the one thing that surprised me the most about motherhood, because I worked and chose to work with kids and had been a classroom teacher. I was like, I'm going to be awesome at this. But for some reason, when you're doing all of the care routines and all of the added mental load of parenting these people, there's nothing left for tea parties. There
No.
just isn't.
No, all of my pretend play energy is drained on real play. Like, I have to actually,
Yes.
like, all the things
Real
I
life.
liked doing in pretend play as a kid, like, let's pretend to bake a cake. Now I'm like, if we bake the cake, you're going to want to help. It's if you give a mouse a cookie, right? Like,
Yes.
but in real life and in the book, it's so fun and adorable. But in real life, I'm like, no, literally, if we bake a cake, then she's going to want to help, and she's going to want to crack the eggs, and then I'm going to have to dig the shells out of the batter. And
It's a giant mess.
yep, it's a huge mess, and it takes way longer. And I will admit that it's improved since I got a stand mixer, because now I don't have to freak out about she wants to hold the hand mixer and, trying to keep her, the angle so it
That's a
doesn't splatter all
lose-lose.
over the place. And there's no spoon to use to make sure she's not scooping it over the edges. So having the stand mixer where she's like, I want to do it. And I'm like, quick, yeah, go for it. You turn the on switch on. Do it. Yep. Up to 3, 4.
That's
She knows
a
her
win.
numbers now, so I can say turn it up to 6, and she turns it up to 6. So
Nice.
that's a bonus. It does help. But generally
victory.
speaking, I have to emotionally prepare myself to bake together, because it's definitely something I would prefer to do on my own.
Yeah. Even my husband, who is a chef,
Yes,
hates
I know.
baking with
I'm
the
probably
girls.
the worst when I come over, because I come over and he's cooking. I'm like, what are you doing? How are you doing that? Teach me how to do it. Can I help? Can I stir?
No, he loves doing that with other grown-ups that aren't going to make it 10 times harder. But
I mean, I don't think I make it easier. Now what are you doing? What are you doing now? Can I do it? Did I add enough? Is that enough? Is this right? Does this look right?
yeah, that was something that he probably before fatherhood would have been like, I can't wait to cook with my kids and teach them all the
Yes.
thing. And now he's just like,
Yeah.
I know you wanted to make cookies. I went ahead and made them before you got up. So
So that we have cookies, and you love that, right?
Yes.
Yes. And the more failure is like when you catch yourself longing for a day when they will be able to do something, right? When you're like, I can't wait till they're this age, and then we can do X, Y, and Z. And instead of trying, I'm like, wait, but I'm supposed to cherish the moment. And I know I'm going to look back, and I already do look back and go, oh, I miss it when
so
they
much.
were.
Yes.
Like, I do not, let me just be very clear, I do not want more children. I am good with my 2. I love them. They are great. But I look back and I'm like, but I would like to visit them when they were littler. Like,
Yes.
I want to play with you at 2 and say, oh, I would have done it so much better. I would have played with you more. I'm like, no, I wouldn't have. I would not have liked to play. If I go back and do it again, it's going to be the same. I don't want to play.
No.
Do you want to hold
Still
you
wouldn't
and
be
snuggle you and pinch your cheeks? But yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Ugh.
Mhm.
So
So-
how have you grown? What realizations have you made, and how do you combat all that guilt?
Yeah. So I think the most poignant advice that was ever given to me was from my friend Mary DeMuth, who is also an author, and she has a parenting book, which I can't remember the name of right now. But she told me one time when I was really in a moment of struggle and like this, I felt like I was being judged by a lot of people on my parenting, and some family members specifically making some judgments about my parenting, and just being so frustrated. And she said, and this is, I'm a person of faith, she's a person of faith, and she said to me, Adam and Eve had the perfect parent, and they still rebelled. They still rebelled. And I'm like, oh man, that is a weight off my shoulders to know that I could do it all perfectly, and they may not become my definition of perfect, right? Like everything that I expect them to be. They are their own tiny little humans. They have their own personalities and their own wills and their own desires. And my vision for them is not necessarily going to match up what ultimately becomes their visions for themselves. And then on the flip side of that, like I could do it all perfect and they could still just rebel and, I don't know, become things that we don't want for our children, end up in prison or something crazy, which God forbid, knock on wood, all those things. But on the flip side, I could really, really screw it up and they could still totally turn out all right. Like I look back on my childhood and I'm like, man, I can really do some judging of my parents, and be like, wow, that was probably not the best choice to make. And then if you've ever read, and I highly recommend for anybody who hasn't read it, the book Educated by Tara Westover, and you're like, her parents did what? And she has turned out to be this incredible woman who is such a gifted writer. And I mean, she didn't go to school. She wasn't just not home. Like she didn't homeschool. She didn't go to school. They didn't teach her. They just didn't teach her. They were like, oh, we live on a farm and we, life is your lesson, whatever. We just so terribly screwed it up. And she still turned out so amazing. So, they are their own people and I'm going to do the very best that I can. And I believe that God gave me my children and picked me as their mom, and knowing all of the failures and mistakes that I'm going to make and knowing what I would do right, quote unquote, right, there is what is right. But really just firmly believing I'm the right parent for my kids. And I know them and I know that I want what's best for them. And I am fully prepared to pay for therapy someday because I'm a strong believer in counseling and therapy and whatever you want to call it, having a best friend that you can talk things out with. Because even in the moments where I think I'm being like so kind and loving, you just never know what your kids are internalizing sometimes. Like, I can say something with, I don't remember what I said to her the other day, but I said something to my daughter and I turned around and she was just crying, like just sad to her. Like I could see it in her face. She was so hurt. And I was like, what? We literally had just finished playing. Like I played pretend play for a really long time, but I said something and it made her think that I didn't enjoy playing with her, which, fair. It's fair. I enjoyed my quality time with her, and I was trying to explain, I enjoy spending time with you. I'm so glad we got to do this together, but I said something that indicated I was done. And then she left, and I was like, okay, she never came back. Where'd she go? And she came back, or I went and found her, and I was like, oh no, here I am thinking that I'm building her self-esteem and filling her bucket, if you will. I've literally spent all day filling your bucket. And this one tiny moment, and it just spilled the whole thing. It just all went all over the place. And so, yeah, that was a hard moment. I can't remember the question. Yeah. Where were we?
No, but that's
sorry.
That's a hard realization to know that we can't control their perception.
Right. Yes. Right. And then really trying to teach them how to communicate what they're feeling is, so I'm like, yep. And making the time to make connections. Because I think, ultimately one of the things I noticed in Educated was that in spite of the terrible upbringing and all of the mistakes, that her parents made and the things that most of us look at and go, oh my gosh, that's crazy pants. I do see in there how her parents fostered connection with her. And so ultimately I'm like, more than the education matters. And now I say fostered a connection. It was messed up. There's all kinds of messed up, right? Like it wasn't a healthy connection, but it was a connection that made her later as an adult able to make connections with other people, I guess. I don't know. So you really start to think.
That first attachment. Yeah.
Yeah. She had healthy is questionable. Healthy attachments. She had an attachment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So trying to teach my kids to have those healthy attachments and experience life and how to relate to others and how to be open with your feelings and at the same time know that the world does not revolve around you, like social awareness and all of those things.
Yes. These are not easy things to
it helps me to know, like, I'm gonna do the best I can, and they're gonna become who they are no matter what I do, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I think I turned out pretty great.
You are pretty great.
I think so. I think I turned out all right in spite of all the things that, maybe or maybe weren't the best choices that my parents made. They'll survive. They're going to be okay.
Yes.
That's for me, I strongly rely on my faith. I'm like, okay, God, you gave them to me knowing I'm going to screw this up. So you got to handle the rest because I only have so much control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wish you would have known that sooner or rested in that sooner.
Oh gosh. It literally was maybe just 2 years ago that my friend gave me that advice. And the bit about, Adam and Eve had the perfect parent
Mm-hmm.
and they still rebelled. The reminder that their own human nature is all in there. Absolutely. I wish I would have known that from the very beginning. Like, hey, you're going to mess up. I wish somebody had said, you're going to mess up or you're going to do what you perceive as messing up, but they're going to be okay and you're going to be okay. And yeah.
Yeah. We
Mhm.
need that reassurance.
We do.
Need that
We
hope.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also this tiny little bit of dread that I'm like, dang it, I think I'm doing a really good job. But they could still end up completely rebelling. But it's interesting too when you look at families, right, where you have sibling dynamics and
Mm-hmm.
how I've responded to my upbringing versus how my brother responded.
Right.
Right? We're such different people and
Yes.
all the same parenting techniques were used on us. And we just responded so differently. So, yeah.
Yes. I think that is so bizarre to
Yeah.
compare siblings and be like, they grew up together in the same house and took
Yeah.
the same skills and the same conversations and went two totally different directions.
Right. Right. It's weird. And even I think early on, I've always been pretty good because I move around so much at making connections pretty quickly when I get to a new place. I know that I need that.
That is your
And
superpower. You are like
thanks.
so good.
Thanks. It's not a superpower. It's just a strong need. Like if I don't do this, I am not going to thrive in this place. And I have enough self-awareness to know that, okay, I got it. I can't be alone in this,
Mm-hmm.
which is weird because I don't really consider myself an extrovert. I prefer a smaller group. Like I don't really want to go perform. But this right here, one-on-one, I love it. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got to Omaha and started meeting other parents with kids around the same age and seeing how different some of us were. Like, we have a tendency to group around people who are like-minded.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the baseline for my friends was we're all like-minded in how much we love our kids and in how much we want our kids to succeed. And how we accomplish that was all so different. I mean, I have one friend who I remember thinking, from infancy, her kids went into childcare. She knew her strength was not babies. And when I first
Mm-hmm.
met her, I was like, you're a stay-at-home mom. Your kid went to childcare? Like I remember thinking like that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then as I got to know her, I so appreciated that she knew that wasn't her strength. Like she knew she needed time during the day to be herself so that she could be the best mom that she could be. Right. And that's what that looked like for her. And I think I was like, wow, that's good for you for knowing that about yourself. She's such a good mom. Her kids are now, the same age, actually a little bit older than my kids, and they're thriving. Like they're both just thriving and they have such a close connection and she's not like against her children. And then when she was with her kids, she really made all that time matter.
Count.
And so, and then I have other friends who, have multiple kids and homeschool and homeschooling works really great for them. And then other friends who, send their kids to school. I'm like, whatever works, embracing the whatever works for your family. Like, and that's why the in-home parent coaching that you do is so important because it's developing a plan that works for that family. And it's so customized. And I think people need it. I'm like, I'm like, call Danielle. Reach out to Wholeheartedly, please, because we are all struggling. No, I'm not paid. I just really, really genuinely believe in what you do. And I so appreciate it. And I see it in my own life where I'm like, man, when I see when Andrew and I aren't on the same page and what a difference it makes to have those like, what do you call them? The family goals or statements or mission statements or whatever it is for your family to get to the same page. And yeah, and being on the same page is more than just, oh, I want my kids to succeed, right? Because like you said, obviously that's something we all want. So
right. That's the baseline. But yeah, there's a lot of difference in opinion of the trajectory that gets us there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But I know some amazing, amazing moms. I think in the world that is so divided right now over whether it's politics or coronavirus or whatever your beliefs are, I feel like I can embrace people because I know at the end of the day, we really do want the same things. We're all looking at this going, we want health and wellness for our families. We want some kids or some parents who are like really eager for their kids to get back in school, and I'm pointing at myself right here, but also caring about, obviously, their health is a priority, right? So it gives me a lot of grace for other people, and I hope that I'm being gracious and that they're actually feeling that I'm not attempting to, I'm really trying not hard to not judge other people's parenting, to go, their situation is so different. And I really hope that they feel that they feel comfortable with me. And that's selfish because I want them to not judge me when I screw up. Like if I don't judge them, they're not going to judge me. We're all, we're doing the best we can. Yeah.
Yes.
And moms they're so great. And they're, like I said, their choices that sometimes you go, that's not how I would have done it. But I see that you have a really great relationship with your kid and your family's really bonding over this. So good for you. You do you, boo. Exactly. Whatever works for your family. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all different.
I feel like you have modeled that really, really well. Just in like the first friend group that we had in Omaha and our first foray into really getting to know other people's lives and parenting and what that looks like and all of the different choices that you can make. I feel like you have always given people the benefit of the doubt. And like Brene Brown has a quote that's, really saying like the research behind whether or not you believe everyone's doing the best they can and what that means about you and what that means about them. And it's fascinating research. But if you can ascribe to that idea that everyone is doing the best that they can, then it shows that you believe that you're doing the best that you can. And it allows you to kind of take that pressure and guilt off yourself. And when you do, then you're able to extend that grace to other people. And we're just all so much better for it.
Yes, agreed.
So you have been the first person that really modeled that well for me to be able to take on. And you made me feel so safe with you when my life was falling apart.
Oh, your life's falling apart. But you know what? In all of it, gosh, you've been such a wonderful example of what motherhood is and how to love your kids well. And I'm in every moment, I'm like, what would Danielle do? How would she handle this?
Get out of here.
I do. No, I legit, like in a moment, I'm like, okay, I still go back to your donut post that went so viral, on like, I'm like, okay, my kid is not being a selfish, entitled brat right now. She has strong feelings. She really likes cake. In Noli's case, it's cake or ice cream, whatever it is.
All sweets,
Yep, all the sweets. And I'm like, because sometimes too, you really just need, coaching-wise, you need the, like some preset phrases that you can regurgitate, right? In a moment so that you're not making it up on the fly. When you're making it up on the fly, like you have to kind of plan for, there are going to be meltdowns. I know that my kid is going to have moments where they're not getting their way. And so I need some of these like, but the problem is, right? Like that's a good one. Like, I really want to do that with you, but the problem is, or I see that you really want another donut, or I see that you really want blah, 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 like trying to recognize that. But I wouldn't have those phrases if it wasn't for you.
Well, and we feel helpless without them. That's when we like spiral and lose our own mind, is when we don't feel like we have any tools.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so true. Yeah. And I'm like, I make little notes. I'm like, okay, here's a phrase that I need to just practice in my brain when she's melting down so that I can, because, when you get out of control and they're out of control, and now I'm like, all right, we're both failing at this.
Yes.
Give me a minute. I'm going to
Yes.
come back to it. I think that's another one of the best pieces of advice. Where did it come from? You? Did it come from a book? Now I can't remember where it came from, but this idea of like, I know what it came from. Love and Logic. Is that a book you're familiar with? Yeah, of course you are.
Yeah.
So Love and Logic, I loved that it gave me permission to not have to come up with a consequence in the moment. To be like, something happened.
Mm-hmm.
This is new. I don't have a regurgitated response for this. I'm going to take some time for myself to figure out how I want to respond. Be like, you know what? There is going to be a consequence for this. I don't know what it's going to be just yet. We'll talk about it later. Right? That gives them a
Yeah,
minute
and
to
that's
think about
okay.
it. And they're like, oh, shoot, there's consequences coming. So maybe they're thinking about
Yeah.
their actions. Maybe they're not. Because a lot of times Love and Logic is all about like natural consequences, but sometimes there's not a natural consequence that's super obvious to them in the moment. So you're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I'm going to handle that one. Like, you woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning to play video games. So I need, it's not just taking away video games isn't really going to fix this waking up in the middle. Like, why are you waking up in the middle of the night? Like, I feel like I need to think about that too. So I'm like, okay, hold
Yeah.
on.
It's so complicated.
Rather than being like, you lose games forever and making threats and consequences that I actually don't want to stick to. I learned that lesson early on. Do not say, we're leaving if you don't act better, we're leaving in 5 minutes when I'm hanging out with my friends and I'm like, I don't want to leave in 5 minutes. I'm still
Yeah.
hanging out. Like, that's that. I'm gonna pick better consequences. Like, if,
Yes.
then you need to sit over here with me for 5 minutes. But that's another one. I'm like, but I don't want you to sit with me for 5 minutes. We're here so that you can play with friends.
I
Yeah,
know.
be cautious with your threats
Yeah.
if you don't want to follow through. Like, ooh,
You're gonna be eating your words. Yeah.
yes, 100%. Yeah, and then I'm not a trustworthy parent, right? Like
Right.
if I don't follow through, now they're like, well, mom never follows through, so
That doesn't really
empty
mean
threats. Those are the
anything.
worst. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, we all still make them, right? Like I do. There are times where I'm like, dang it, that's a totally empty threat, and I hate that I just said it, and I don't have to figure out something else.
Sure.
And it's okay for me to go, you know what? I changed my mind. That's not how I'm
Yes.
going to handle this.
That is just fine.
Hold on. I got to change it. Yeah. Yeah. Parenting is hard.
Yes.
It's real hard.
You just shared so much advice that I feel like I would have loved hearing that perspective years ago. And I hope that a lot of moms resonate with a lot of those things and just feel encouraged that they're not alone. And yeah, it is hard. And there is so many complicated things affecting your clarity and your ability to parent and show up well and do the things that you want to do. Mm-hmm. Despite how you were parented and despite those early relationships. And
I'd like to ask moms out there, I want to say, do you love your kids? And I know that they're all going to say yes. And I'm going to say, high five. Good job. You're doing it well then. You got it. You love them? Good job. That's your main responsibility.
Yes.
To love them and let them know that they're loved.
Oh, I love it.
You got it.
So you already answered this, but I'm going to make you answer one more time because I'm asking every single guest at the end of the episode. How are you the mom that your kids need?
Ooh. I am the mom that my kids need because nobody knows them like I do.
Yes.
Nobody knows their need. I mean, my husband makes fun of me, but I'm like, if their breathing patterns change in the middle of the night, I can tell if my son's about to get sick, right? Like nobody else can do that. Nobody else can, I knew them before they were born, like I know a lot of people go, oh, I can't wait to meet you. Like I didn't feel that. I remember feeling like I know you already. Like I know what you need. I know how you're feeling. And that is, it's really unique and special. Nobody knows them like I do. Whether you carried them on the inside or not, if you adopted your babies, you still are the person that is with them. I'm the person that's with them all the time. I feel a little bit bad because I did say to my husband, I was like, nobody knows my kids like I do. No husband, not even you. I love you and you know your kids and your relationship with them is different, but I know them better because I'm in it all the time, all the time. And he's present, but he's also military. So he doesn't have a choice, and there are plenty of parents that work outside of the home or have to travel and do things like that. So inevitably, one spouse ends up just kind of knowing
right,
things.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm the best kids because I know I'm the best.
Yeah. You got the street cred to prove it.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what that means.
You're an amazing mom. I look up to you in a lot of ways. And I'm so thankful that you would take the time and be so vulnerable and sharing the ways that you have really felt that guilt, because that's going to make another mama not feel so alone.
I hope so. You're not alone, mamas. Good job.
Yes.
High fives.
Yay. Okay. Well, I know that I will talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
I just love her honesty. I hope you heard the one thing you needed to hear today. Next episode, we'll hear from Sandra Etherington, who shares how figuring out her and her kids' personalities in Myers-Briggs was a game changer for their relationships. If you're loving this podcast, leave a rating or review and join our version of Patreon, where you can support the show and join our exclusive community. You belong here. Thanks for coming on this journey with me. I believe in you, and I'm cheering you on.